Good afternoon. Since it is noon, we could say good afternoon. I am the Reverend Dr. Mike Hegeman, and this is we have class that we have here every Wednesday at noon throughout the year, but we've been partnering with the Arizona Interfaith Movement for a number of weeks now, and we'll continue after this, but this is week 5, I think, with you.
Week 5.
And today we're going to cover Buddhism in our class, or beginning to cover Buddhism.
Right.
There's so much more we could learn. But we do welcome all of those who are here present in the room. So grateful. There's always room for more, we say. That you're very welcome. But we have a number of people online, both people who are associated with Pinnacle Presbyterian Church, and they're waving. And there's probably more than the ones you actually just see now. But we're welcome to all of those. If we can find a time for questions, I think the chat box is some way that people online can actually ask questions along the way, especially towards the end of our time. Let's see, anything else? Next week, on the off weeks when Dr. Solosa is not here, we're covering Albert is here. We are covering the different Hebrew prophets.
So what's the prophet now?
Next week is Daniel.
Oh, Daniel.
We have done Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and next week is Daniel. So if anybody has the original plot, I was sick for a week, and so we're 1 week off on the original plan, but we're covering Daniel next week.
Is Daniel rather apocalyptic?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Daniel is apocalyptic text, right? So we'll cover that. The word apocalyptic appears some 600 times in my dissertation. So.
Oh really? Oh my God.
That's just.
No. This is shop talk for us.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll get a little taste of what Jewish apocalyptic is, and we'll talk more about that next week. But today we're beginning the process of learning about Buddhism. All right? Okay, so I'm sure there's another announcement maybe towards the end, but welcome to all of you. Glad that you're here. Let's turn things right over to Albert.
Thank you, Reverend Mike Hegeman. Mike, it is quite, people say it's quite a pleasure to be here. I feel sincerely that it is a pleasure to come to Pinnacle Presbyterian. My gosh, there was a road closure there, and I thought, how do I get to Pinnacle Presbyterians? Do I have to walk? And this is one thing related to life and all the teachings of the world religions. We make plans, but life intervenes. And so I had to drive round and around and around and around. And then I thought, I go to Pima. And I get confused about the names of streets. This is not my neighborhood. I live in downtown Phoenix, where some people are afraid to come. So anyway, we will start with a video first. And then this is just for probably 10 minutes. 6 according to Nate over there. And then I just want you to see this. This is a classic. It's written in your study guide. It's pbs.org. And it has some animation in it. Beautiful. About the Buddha.
He lived in India 2,500 years ago. Echoes of his world still remain. The Buddha, the Indian sage whose story inspired one of the world's great religions, Buddhism, the 4th largest religion in the world. He was the son of a king, a pampered prince who abandoned a life of pleasure to seek enlightenment.
Even Buddha himself, in order to get final enlightenment, need hard work.
It was an arduous spiritual journey.
He was eating 1 grain of rice per day. He was standing on 1 foot. He was sleeping on nails.
Meditating under the Bodhi tree, he attained the supreme wisdom.
There is no knowledge won without sacrifice. In order to gain anything, you must first lose everything.
Next, the Buddha. 2,500 years ago, nestled in a fertile valley along the border between India and Nepal, a child was born who was to become the Buddha. The stories say that before his birth, his mother, the queen of a small Indian kingdom, had a dream.
A beautiful white elephant offered the queen a lotus flower and then entered the side of her body. When sages were asked to interpret the dream, they predicted the queen would give birth to a son, destined to become either a great ruler or a holy man. One day, they said, he would either conquer the world or become an enlightened being, the Buddha.
People like stories. It is one of the ways we learn. The story of the Buddha's life is an archetypal journey, but it is a means to an end. It is not an end.
Within 10 months, as a tree lowered a branch to support her, a baby boy was born, emerging from her side. 7 days later, the queen died. The world is filled with pain and sorrow, the Buddha would one day teach. But I have found a serenity, he told his followers, that you can find too.
Everybody understands suffering. It's something that we all share with everybody else. It's at once utterly intimate and utterly shared. So Buddha says that's a place to begin. That's where we begin.
No matter what your circumstances, you will end up losing everything you love, you will end up aging, you will end up ill. And the problem is that we need to figure out how to make that all be all right.
What he actually said was that life is blissful. There's joy everywhere, only we're closed off to it. His teachings were actually about opening up the joyful or blissful nature of reality. But the bliss and the joy is in the transitoriness. Do you see this glass? I love this glass. It holds the water admirably. When I tap it, it has a lovely ring. When the sun shines on it, it reflects the light beautifully. But when the wind blows and the glass falls off the shelf and breaks, or if my elbow hits it and it falls to the ground, I say, of course. But when I know that the glass is already broken, every minute with it is precious.
Everybody, every human being wants happiness. And Buddha, he acts like a teacher. You are your own master. Future, everything depends on your own shoulder. Buddha's responsibility is just to show the path. That's all.
The Buddha can shine out from the eyes of anybody. Inside the buffeting of an ordinary human life, at any moment what the Buddha found, we can find.
welcome back to after the video. So I enjoy this. I haven't seen this for a while. I would like to hear your thoughts first before I go on talking. Anything that comes to your mind?
And when somebody says repeat it, so they, yeah.
Yeah, anything that comes to your mind? Just your gut reaction?
Peace.
Peace, very good, yeah. One more word,
We
please.
we all are responsible for ourselves.
We all are responsible for ourselves. Let me get both of those ideas. Typically, when I teach, it's Socratic. There's a question and answer. I don't feel like teaching like giving you a can of sardines. It's all canned, and then I will just deliver it to you. So anyway, would you repeat what you said?
We all are responsible for ourselves.
We all are responsible for ourselves. So let me kind of go back to our first meeting when I told you about the difference between religious studies and theology. And I wear those hats. One hat is religious studies. And so remember last meeting when our Jane, guest speaker, said, oh, you can be a god. And then inside me I thought, well, I kind of not agree with your translation. You can be a saint. Or you can be a tirthankar, which means somebody who would help you walk across the river. So our guest speaker has the theology. He's a Jain. But then there is the bridging between the language of Jainism and English. So it's easy to say God. But our conception of God, probably, most of you, is different, right? How can you be a God? There's only one God. And so it's better probably saint or tirthankar, which is someone who would help you walk across the stream. Just like the Buddha, somebody thinks, oh, is Buddha a God? And I would keep on saying, oh, no. But they pray to him. Oh, yeah. But the Buddha is there to teach and to guide, but not to be a God and say, oh my, Albert, you do this, you do that, I will judge you to be a sinner or have you. So no, that's different. So anyway, so we are studying what people believe and what observers believe they believe, which is religious studies. So we use anthropology, we use poetry. So it's different. So believers say something, and then objective or supposedly scholars of religious studies say something else. So we can have, in fact, one of my favorite sayings is that ask 5 Buddhists and they probably would give you 6 answers what Buddhism is. Ask what for them the Buddha is, and they will have different answers. So in any case, let's take a look at our study guide. And so the life of the Buddha is an illustration of life itself and the teachings of the Buddha. And so if you go to page 3 of the guide, Buddhism, selected terms, names, and concepts, we can't really pinpoint exactly. So between India and what we know as Nepal, that is where this Siddhartha Gautama was born. And Buddhism is 500 years BC, before Christ, or before the Common Era. That's one thing to consider. And then Siddhartha, they have many names, but probably he's from the Sakya clan, and he's Siddhartha, and he became the Buddha. What do you think is the meaning of the word Buddha? Anybody?
Enlightened one.
Yes, enlightened one. Give me another one. Correct.
Peace.
Peace. Okay, give me one more.
Teacher?
Teacher. Okay, all those are fine, but in very simple sense, also the word Buddha means awake. Somebody who is awake. I hope I'm awake right now. And then they are fond of saying, oh, does the dog have a Buddha nature? Well, if the dog is awake, yeah, the dog can be a Buddha. And so in the story that you see, what I would typically do is sometimes parallel this with the story of the birth of Jesus from the Gospel according to Matthew and Luke. Okay, you saw the video. Did you remember some things there in the video about the birth of the Buddha that seems kind of familiar to you or striking to you?
Yeah, it sounded like Mary, somewhat like Mary.
Oh, somewhat like Mary, huh? Right, the Mother Mary, Virgin Mary, right? In what sense?
Well, and the Buddha came from her, but not really through her, came out her side.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Kind of like, referred to virginity.
Yes. Okay. So those are really symbols, and it's very good to pay attention to symbols. And that was one of the terms for our first meeting, right? And so you parallel all this, virgin birth, probably. That's what you're saying. And then what was involved? The white elephant. The white elephant. Oh yeah. I think, I don't know if in Matthew or Luke it's like, what, the Holy Spirit? I would always say the bird.
The Holy Spirit.
The Holy Spirit.
Appears as a dove later.
A dove. Okay, I'm sorry, I call it the bird. Okay, and anyway, so we have those. There's so many parallels, which I would love for you to think about. And then in your study guide, there is a term there called 3 passing sights. And so the story goes that the Buddha, because of the prediction that he would be a holy man or a king or would conquer, his father wanted him to be a king. Because he's a king, I want my son to be a king. And so let's give him the life of pleasure. So he would not even consider being a holy man. Oh, being a holy man, oh my goodness, that is such a hard life. I want you to be a king. And so he enclosed the palace and said, Siddhartha, from now on, you're not going to go out there. You're going to live the life of pleasure. Oh gosh, the life of pleasure, if you read this, is like wine, women, and song. You would not think of being an ascetic, and you would think that life is perfect. So you wouldn't even think of that. But he became curious. What's going out there? What is going on out there? I mean, much as I enjoy all this, women, dancing, good food, right? Very perfect life. And so, but he became curious. What's going outside? And so, one version of the story has it that he escaped the enclosure of the palace. And he saw certain things. And that is sometimes called the 3 passing sights. First, he saw a man who was sick. Oh, that's what sickness is. Oh, what happens? Oh, you weaken your body and you somehow become lethargic or something. You're not in perfect shape. Anyway, I have other movies that you can watch if you want to watch movies about this. And then, oh my, he saw an old man. Oh, what happened? What happened to that man? He's stooping and he's using a cane to walk. Oh, but that's what happened to him. And then in the 3rd passing sight was a funeral procession. Someone died. And so in the story, the 3 passing sights is what the Buddha saw. And so that there goes to tell us, this is the message, that there is sickness, there is old age, and there is death. And I have to tell you the bad news. We all have to go through it. I mean, I can be dead tomorrow. I always say that. Oh, that's so morbid. But anyway, so whatever we see in a story is an illustration of the teaching. And I think that we go back again to our first meeting when I told you about myths and narrative. Meaning that a lot of our religions are stories. And stories are very powerful, but sometimes you don't need to take them literally. It's something like, this is what's going on. Well, the world was created in 6 days and God rested on the seventh. Well, please, pardon me, when I talk religious studies sometimes. Well, yeah, probably days are different and so forth. But to me, it's a truth with a capital T that conveys that creation took some time. And actually, I don't want to go into the Hebrew Bible. There are 2 creation stories, the way I read them. But anyway, so there are symbols. There are symbols. And so the symbol in the story of the Buddha is such that, you have illness or disease, old age, and death. And those are powerful symbols. They might not be literally true, but they are true. So if you flip your handout to the 4 noble truths, life is dukkha. And the word dukkha is Pali. If Hinduism has a holy language called Sanskrit, in Buddhism the holy language is Pali. And dukkha, it's very difficult to translate. Sometimes people, life is suffering. Oh my gosh, those Buddhists, they're very pessimistic. Life is suffering. Why? Why can I not have fun? Life is suffering can mean life is imperfect, or life is unsatisfactory, or suffering needs to be. So the first noble truth is suffering needs to be understood clearly and completely. You see that in your reading, in your handout? Suffering is caused by impermanence. What do I mean by impermanence? Well, one way of saying it is change happens, whether you like it or not. Okay, if yesterday I was able to run around, today I was not able to, change happens. I have aches, a little bit of aches and pains. And so life is insubstantial. I'm just using all this buzzword because change is suffering. I was thinking when I we were talking about when, I was talking to Nate here. I was in New York in 1984. And then you said that in 84, what were you?
I was graduating high school.
Oh, you graduated high school. So change happens. Oh my gosh, I'm so different now. Well, compared to 84 when I was running around Midtown Manhattan. But that's suffering. That can cause suffering. We are so used to people we see, then all of a sudden we don't see them. We're separated from them. And so suffering is not just physical. It's also mental or psychological, And then suffering is not to go away. The one who suffers is the one who is going to go away. Oh, gee whiz. All these teachings. But one thing that I learned personally is that sometimes when you're aware of it, this is happening. It helps. It helps sometimes. Change is happening. And probably adapting to it, right, helps us. But there are some inevitabilities. By the way, I took these notes way back a long time ago from this book of Lama Surya Das, Awakening the Buddha Within. And this is the Tibetan version of Buddhism, but in general, a lot of these stories are similar. So anyway, let's take a look at the second noble truth. The origin of dukkha, or suffering, is tanha, which is literally translated as thirst. It is desire accompanied by all other passions, defilements, and impurities. So we have desires. Oh, I want to live. Oh, I want to have a clear skin. Oh my goodness. Oh, my hair is turning gray. Oh, I want to be pretty. I have to go to have some hair coloration. So it is my desire to be pretty or to be good looking that probably can make me suffer. So there is hankering for something. Oh, I want to be young. Oh, I want a Maserati. Desire. There are certain things that I want. Actually, there is an article in the Buddhist magazine a few weeks ago, which says you cannot get everything that you want. Gee whiz, why not? Why not? If am I kind of like a superpower? If I pray for it, can I not get it? Oh, I want a really beautiful wife who's wealthy or a billionaire, and so I don't have to ever work anymore. Well, anyway, so in order to break the chain, when pleasant things arise, we should not cling to it, because a few moments afterwards, unpleasant things certain happen. Okay? We should not condemn, because what we might be condemning would be something that we would want. Anyway, it's about the transitoriness of things. And so, attachment is very difficult. So it's said non-attachment or letting go. You let go. There are times when you just say, let go. Just chill. Chill, baby, chill. That's what they're saying. And so, anyway, so the third noble truth talks about nirvana. Oh, you might have heard the word nirvana. Any definition of nirvana the way you, please? Nirvana? Peace. Very good. Yeah. It's a band, right? Some of us know the band Nirvana. Kurt Cobain, but he killed himself. Anyway, I'm sorry. Okay, anything else? Nirvana? Peace? Freedom. Oh, yeah. We love freedom. Yeah, freedom. Inner peace, fulfillment, cessation of craving, liberation, the end of suffering. So at least the Buddha said, the teaching said, it's possible. Yeah, it's possible. And then you go to the fourth noble truth, which is the eightfold path to enlightenment. There are certain things that you can do in order to be free. There are certain things that you can do in order to find peace or enlightenment. So that's page 2 of the handout. So anyway, and so there are 8 things. By the way, in some of the Asian religions, I am Asian, so we are fond of using the number 8. I know that in some religions they're fond of 5 or 3, but here it's number 8. And so, right in there's wisdom, and there is mental discipline, and all that we can use in order to help us get enlightenment. By the way, again, translation issue. Typically, if you would read a book, it'd say right view, right understanding. But one way of translating that is skillful understanding. Not necessarily right, but you are skillful in terms of understanding, or your views are skillful. So, wisdom, number 1. Okay? Number 1, knowledge of suffering, origin of suffering, knowledge that leads to the cessation of suffering. Yeah, just knowledge is important. This is very true about Buddhism. I'm not saying not true for other religions, but knowledge is important.
Another translation of it is balanced.
Balance, okay.
Thinking, balance,
yeah.
Action, balance. There's many different ways
yeah.
of translating that.
Yeah, Reverend Mike says the other translation might be balance. And I think that probably connects to the middle way or the middle path, which I will hopefully go into. But another way of looking at it is that it's good, it's useful to have knowledge. Remember, it's not talking about faith. It's talking about knowledge, right? Or skillfulness. So, the knowledge of the law of karma. Okay, when did you hear the word karma in our series? This is our number 5. What?
Jainism.
Jainism. Where else?
Hindu.
Hindu. Very good. Yeah. So seemingly, this word karma is very important in this understanding of the word. Now, a last meeting with Mahendra, he talked about karma, right? Okay, you remember that. And he said it is an action and then the result. I think we were kind of the two of us might have some slightly, he said that there is a direct consequence. But you might not realize that karma might happen, but then the consequence can come later. But there is always a consequence. It's not God judging you, but our actions have consequences. Remember, we have to be responsible for our own actions, right? Okay. So the law of karma, cause and effect, and then the law of impermanence, which means that nothing is ever permanent. Everything is temporary. So whenever someone told me, oh, I'm the interim president of such and such a college. Well, I thought to myself, aren't we all interim? I'm interim as a person. Anyway, number 2 is right thought or intention. Remember I asked you something about, are intentions important? I really intend to do good, but I F up. Okay? So when we have certain intentions or aspirations, we are intentional about letting go or freedom from ill will or anger and all those things. So in any way, I will go to the second set. This should be another, is what is the ethical or moral code of Buddhism? Number 3, right speech. What do you think is right speech in when you're studying the prophets? What is right speech? Or what's right speech in the 10 Commandments?
Honesty.
Be honest. Okay. What else? Thou shalt not bear false witness.
Shall not lie, cheat.
Oh, excellent. Oh, Todd, you're getting an A+. Do not lie. Okay. So, right speech, abstain. But this is the general discussion. Abstaining from false, harsh, or malicious speech. Oh my gosh, I do that. Abstaining from idle chatter. Abstaining from lies, backbiting, slander, and talk that might bring about hatred, enmity, disunity, and disharmony. Abstaining from exaggerated, harsh, rude, impolite, malicious, and abusive language. See, the whole discussion of right speech is very broad, right? There's so many different samples. So if I tell you that Phoenix is the loveliest city in the world, well, that might be, that might not be right speech if I'm intending to deceive you to buy real estate in Phoenix. Anyway, that's a bad example. But right speech, so what do? We use friendly and benevolent and pleasant and gentle or meaningful or useful language. And if one cannot say something useful, one should keep noble silence. Ooh, so that's why sometimes I cover my mouth. Why do you always cover your mouth? Well, because I don't want to say anything bad. Anyway, I remember in one of the monasteries where I trained, quote unquote, oh, brothers, let us not speak ill of, let's say, Albert. He's not in our presence right now. And so it's better be that when we say something, Albert is present. So we are giving him due consideration. So there is a talk about silence. That's why, there's preciousness in the sound, but there's also preciousness in silence. So just one day ago, I was looking into, I am a subscriber to the Daily Dharma. Remember when we talked about Hinduism? I just want to remind you, the word Dharma is so rich. It can mean teaching, right? Or the law. And it says, use words that are friendly and benevolent and gentle and meaningful and useful. When we speak with greater skill, our true self, our compassion, loving self emerges with gentle ease. So before you speak, stop, breathe, and consider if what you are about to say will improve upon silence. Oh, wow. Okay, so anyway, so there's a talk about silence. By the way, what I'm wearing right now is a shirt from the Zen Mountain Monastery. I was a fool. Many years ago, I thought, oh, I want to understand Buddhist philosophy. And so, what can I study at the Zen Mountain Monastery? This is in New York, Mount Tremper in New York. So, you know what I studied? Aikido. And my body was in pain. And I haven't...
Explain Aikido.
Aikido is martial arts. And it's one form of martial arts where we do this and where we do fencing. Thank you, Mike, that's Aikido. It can be like karate or it can be like judo. Those martial arts were informed by Buddhism or Asian philosophy. So, oh my God, my entire body was in pain. So I realized the first noble truth. Anyway, there's many more to this story. And so number 4 is right action. What does right action mean? Well, these are the 5 things of Buddhism. They have 5, okay? Abstaining from killing living beings. What is the difference here? Do you remember something from Jainism? Abstaining from killing living beings. What does that mean? Do I kill the mouse that's in my house? No, probably. But anyway, take that in context. So it pertains to animals. It might pertain to plants or other things, right? Because they are living beings. It's not just say, thou shalt not kill. Okay, taking what is not given. Thou shalt not steal. Dishonest dealings. Oh my gosh. Abstaining from misconduct in sensual pleasures. Ooh la la. Okay. And abstaining from addictive substances, drugs, and alcohol. So I remember in France, another Buddhist monastery there is Plum Village. Not Peach, but Plum Village. And the monks told me, look at all those places, like vineyards, right? And they told me, we can enjoy looking at them, but we cannot partake of wine, or alcohol. So anyway, probably it applies to other addictive substances that you might kind of elaborate from the story, or drugs. Who knows? Xanax or anyway. Okay, so those are the 5 prohibitions. And then number 5 is right livelihood. What does that mean? Well, I will abandon means of livelihood that brings harm to others. Well, I won't be a drug dealer. I won't trade in arms and lethal weapons. Okay? I won't deal with intoxicating drinks, meaning that I won't be a bartender. Thank you. Okay, so killing animals. Oh my goodness. One of those things is, poor butchers. They had to kill animals. And then another thing is cheating. I will not be in a profession that is not honorable or that is not blameless or innocent, that will harm others. And so people choose their professions based on certain things. And this connects to what our Jain speaker was saying, right? I will not I will not do certain things that I will know that will harm others. Okay, so that's what right livelihood. Anyway, so the last 3 is about mental discipline. One thing that's very important, I think, is that this teaching is telling me how I can deal with my head and my mind. By the way, my brain is different from mine, but I will get to that, hopefully. I can talk to you about that. And so, in terms of mental discipline, right effort, I will be energetic in will to prevent evil and unwholesome states of mind, and right mindfulness, meaning I will be very diligently aware of my body, my feelings, my mind, my ideas, and know my breathing. Isn't that very basic? We breathe, but just to know how to breathe is part of life. And then number 8 is right concentration, which means that I will try and concentrate and focus. If I'm driving, I'm not going to eat the cheeseburger while I am driving. By the way, some people had asked me, are all Buddhists vegetarians or no? And I can explain. Is the Dalai Lama vegetarian? No. He tried. He had difficulty. So you might connect some of those concepts previously. So anyway, we are so aware of time here. We have about 20 minutes. So let's go back to the number 3 about Buddhist names and concepts, page 3. So as Reverend Mike had said, we're talking about the middle path or the middle way. What does that mean? My interpretation is not, when the Buddha was trying to find out how he could be enlightened, he tried standing on one leg. These are what the sadhus, the gurus are doing. I want to be enlightened. I will sleep in a bed of nails. I will do yoga. I will perform all sorts of things that will make me enlightened. I will just eat a grain of rice and see how I survive. Well, the middle path is like you're not going to be very hungry, but you're not going to gorge yourself with food. Just the middle path. Yeah, and similarly with all other things that we do. So, and by the way, he's not the only philosopher who came up with that, even Aristotle and so forth. So that's another department of my life, political philosophy. But in any case, there is also stories about the Buddhists, the temptation of the Buddha. Do you remember in the New Testament the stories of temptation? Anybody? Reverend Mike?
We've heard them recently, so.
Oh.
The story of temptation.
The story of temptation of Jesus.
Yes.
Right? I will do this to you, blah, blah, blah. Now, there is a similar story in terms of the life of the Buddha. Now, there are many versions. I'll give you one version. And so this Mara is the devil. I had a student named Mara, and Mara, you're the devil. And so, hindrances to enlightenment. So Mara threw arrow shots to the Buddha. And then the Buddha threw back lotus flowers. What do you think is the test there? Well, the test is whether probably he'll get back at me. Oh, Buddha, you're powerful. Right? So, the Buddha is meditating. Oh no, we'll distract you with pretty girls or desire and all that. And there's some technical terms for that. But the Buddha kept still and still thought of his path to enlightenment. So he was not distracted. Just like Jesus was not distracted that you convert this stone to bread. Right? Okay. And so, anyway, so one of the important points, I think, is that when the Buddha realized enlightenment or achieved what is called nirvana, or what in Japanese is called satori, so he decided that he is going to share. He's going to teach. He didn't say, I will be a god. I am going to teach. And so that's the word, you see, that's the word dharma in terms of his realizations. And when the Buddha decided to teach, he had people who are working with him who became the monastics, the monks. Now, as you can probably see, Buddhism is all over the world. I don't know if this is still true, but you will find the most number of Buddhist sects in what country? Reverend Mike? USA. I'm not kidding you. But that could have changed. But, so there are many different types of Buddhism. As you might tell me, there are many different types of Christianity. So That's why I told you if you ask 4 or 5 Buddhists, they will probably give you different responses. And so there is what is called the Theravada or Hinayana. It's called the lesser vehicle. That's kind of degrading. But the countries that are Theravada or Hinayana, one example is Thailand. One other example, which I just visited, is Sri Lanka. They have that Buddhism. And then, so Sri Lanka on my list, Burma or Myanmar now, and then Thailand. Now, you will also find what is called Mahayana. Maha, remember, that prefix means great. Mahayana, Maharaja. It means, so you have probably Japan, China, and then there's a variation called Zen Buddhism, which is Buddhism that is focused on sitting meditation, which also came from India and then China. And then, so there is a whole different kind of schools of thought in Buddhism. And I do not mean to discuss everything, but I'm just giving you kind of, hopefully, the foundation. And so in Thailand, the term, if you go to the what, say what, you go to the temple. And there are different terms in Chinese, Vietnamese, it's the pagoda. Okay, there's a stupa, and we'll not go to that. And so you have one of the most known types of Buddhism is Tibetan. Why do you think? Why do you think Tibetan Buddhism is famous? Any thought? Yeah, thank you. The Dalai Lama. Yeah, we have known the Dalai Lama. And by the way, the Dalai Lama is a title. It's just like the title Pope. I think you say that's Tenzin Gyatso, the Dalai Lama. And by the way, you know, he won the Nobel Peace Prize. And I might tell this to you in the next meeting. And one of the things that he is teaching is this notion of nonviolence, ahimsa. When did we hear that? Martin Luther King. Here in this class, last week with Jainism, ahimsa, nonviolence. And then I might address to you the relationship between China and Tibet and this place in India called Dharamsala, where the Dalai Lama is. So anyway, so we did some sort of a very broad overview of Buddhism. And if there's such thing as a confession, I did not look for a guest speaker today because I think I can kind of intimate with you what Buddhism is after all those things. But you know, we can invite so many more Buddhists, and they can tell me what you know. Tell us something different. So yes.
Tell us a little, for our cultural tour, our interfaith tour, we went to a place that's called a Buddhist meditation center. How does that particular Buddhism fit within the bigger picture of Buddhism?
Oh, thank you. You know, asking questions is a very, very good thing. So we went to a cultural heritage tour. Wow, I think we had fun, Reverend Mike, and Kelly. I thank you, and you know, Reverend Eric, for making arrangements about. So we went to Soka Gakkai International, which is a branch of Buddhism that came from Japan, and they are focused on chanting. Again, I'm speaking not as a member of Soka Gakkai, but they're focused on chanting the Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, which, you know, it's really good to chant. And then we learned that Tina Turner practice, right? Did we hear about Tina Turner in the center? So anyway, so that is from the Mahayana tradition, and then Japan, and then in Japan you have several Buddhist teachers also. So it's from the Nichiren sect, and then further down into, but Soka Gakkai Buddhism became, my reading of the history of it is after the Second World War, and it became more kind of popular. So that is part of that. But chanting is common to a lot of Buddhist sects or Buddhist traditions. They do chant. By the way, again, I am not putting this down, I'm just stating a matter of fact. I heard or I learned from our visit of SGI that, oh yeah, you can chant, oh, I want to have a child. Oh, I want to have a car. And then you rub the beads and so forth and do that. So I don't mean, I'm just reporting to you and that was really a beautiful story about one of our hosts in the SGI Center, about her wishing to have a child and so forth. Yeah. So chanting is one part of Buddhist.
Why didn't they have a Buddha?
Ah, yeah, okay. But that's a very good question, which my attempt to answer is why didn't they have to have a Buddha? Remember the altar, which says which they call it's called the Gohonzon. That is what is the focus. It's not the statue of the Buddha, but because typically you have different statues of the Buddha, which becomes the focus, or the focal point. Yeah. That's great observation. Why? Well, I think idiosyncratically, my supposition is that they have chosen that rather than the Buddha. Or it's just like if you go to a mosque. Some of us have been to a mosque. There are no statues. Go to a quote-unquote Protestant church, and they don't have a statue of the crucifix like Jesus hanging, but they have the Bible in the center. Yeah.
Maybe this is just something that's a matter of translation, but where it says second noble truth.
Yeah.
It says, where there is no desire, there is no grasping. Without grasping, there is no volitional activity of becoming.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't somebody want to become something?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. In fact, I love your question. Okay, my interpretation of your question is, second noble truth, why is it that I'm not desiring something? Why doesn't anyone want to become something, right? That's my summary of your question. Well, the very fact that you want to be enlightened is a desire itself, right? And it causes you to suffer. I want to be enlightened. I want to be a Buddha. Which, right?
That's ironic.
It is ironic. I remember I went to, my teacher sent me to a church here in Scottsdale, further south. And so, Albert, take my place, give a lecture or talk to them about this. And one of the students asked me, when do I start speaking in tongues? I want to speak in tongues. I thought I was kind of, oh my God, what do I tell this person? Because I think he or she thought that speaking in tongues is one of those things that will, and then of course it causes her to suffer because that is her desire, is to speak in tongues. But anyway, so we all do, even our desire to live, right? Yeah, volitional. You see, Buddhism has very difficult concepts, which I will just allude to. The concept of non-self. Hinduism and Buddhism are two different things because Hinduism would tell you there is a self, capital S, or the soul. But Buddhism would ultimately tell you there is no self. One of my final exam questions in my Buddhism class is, what is emptiness?
What is what?
What is emptiness? Oh boy. I don't know. If I have my answer on file, but I got an A in the class, so anyway, that's probably my volitional intention is to get an A in the class. But yeah, emptiness is very important. There's no self. So when you look at Hinduism and Buddhism, Buddhism is a response to Hinduism. I think the parallel is this is Judaism and this is Christianity.
What's the parallel to Christianity?
Okay, there's parallel is Judaism and Christianity. Yeah, you have a question.
So non-self meaning no soul?
Yeah, non-self. Yeah, non-self. Yeah.
I didn't get to go on your field trip, but the chanting,
Yeah.
the chanting place, isn't the purpose of the chanting
Uh-huh.
is the idea of focusing and quiet mind?
Uh-huh.
And so that's a tool.
Yeah.
It's not so much like singing,
Mhm.
you know, it's more of a tool to
Yes.
quiet down and focus.
Very, very good. That might be. So this will be the last question because, Ann Taylor gifted me with a rosary. I think she learned that I collect rosaries, and I have the rosary of various religions and churches, which, I won't live long, so I would always say, I'll. But that is, oh my God, all Catholics, they just repeat the same thing. They're mumbling and, oh, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Yeah, but that's a focusing. That's a way of focusing. That's like a chant. Oh, it is like a chant, but it does help in focusing the mind. When we say something, we might not even understand what we're saying, but we're focused. Yeah. Okay. So let me kind of conclude our meeting today by saying that during our next session, I will hopefully, inshallah, I invited somebody who will talk to us about yoga, which is common in all these practices. And number two, I don't know, I invited a Buddhist monk, and then probably we might do some Buddhist prayer. So that's the application, which transcends all these religions. And then the next meeting after that, I ask some of you to help me with the class, and so it will not be onerous, but I would love for you to participate and hopefully speak, just 3 minutes, 2 minutes here in class when we get to Taoism or Golden Rule, of course. So let me conclude with the Golden Rule. Hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. Then I found another version which says, whatever is disagreeable to yourself, do not do unto others. Okay, so thank you very much.
And thank you.
Yes, Reverend Mike.
And to add something that I haven't studied Thomas Merton myself all that much, but he was a Trappist monk, Catholic Trappist monk, who found in Buddhism a lot of places of meeting between his Christian faith and Buddhism, because Buddhism can be among many of the world's religions. You can enter into Buddhism fully as a religion, and in some ways, or some would say as a science of mind, saying it is a philosophy, a way of thinking. And so there are ways for us as Christian people to learn from Buddhism, a way of shaping our minds and thinking, and along the way, again for us, I would always look for parallels between the Sermon on the Mount, or when Paul says something like, it is no longer I who live, but it was Christ who lives in me. There is a sense of non-self.
Non-self.
Not exactly, but it's something akin to that. And so Thomas Merton, I'd love for me to take a class, and all of us together maybe learn about this one person's way of finding the common place between some Buddhism and Christianity. But also to know, I read Buddhist books that really do help me to help me to think again along the lines of suffering and not suffering, or a sense of finding what is life. What do I find unsatisfactory about life? Yeah. And how do I approach that? Anyway, just want to at least bring us back to that idea of, for some people, Buddhism is a full-blown religion, and for others, it is a science of mind and a way of thinking.
One of you here, I think, took my class at the CASA, the Franciscan Renewal, Thomas Merton and Thich Nhat Hanh. That was the last class that I taught at the Franciscan Renewal Center. Anyway. Have a good afternoon, everybody. Thank you.